This is the Summer of Freedom Cultural Series, an audio journey through historically significant Black landmarks in Philadelphia, hosted and executive produced by Solomon Jones. In this episode, we explore the legacy of the Colored Girls Museum, a public ritual for the protection, praise, and grace of ordinary Black women and girls. For 10 years, the museum has told stories and raised consciousness through the beauty of Black art.
Vashti DuBois is glowing as we reach the gateway outside the Colored Girls Museum on the 4600 block of Newhall Street in Germantown.
Okay, so I'm really excited about, this is no ordinary grate. This is a portal, right? And so it was created and installed last June by Martha Jackson Jarvis, who's a DC-based artist who's actually originally from Philadelphia. And this portal gateway is actually part of a design by Sid Carpenter. She's an incredible artist, and we're so honored to be representing her and be in conversation with her at this museum. You're looking at this gateway and you can see that what Martha gave us, actually, if you stand back, is like a very, very African design, but it's actually two parts of a shield. And this mosaic staff gives us the staff for the shield, which I think is extraordinary. So when you walk into the Colored Girls Museum, we are preparing you for an experience, because the Colored Girls Museum is a public ritual for the protection, praise, and grace of ordinary Black women and girls. So we want to make sure from the moment you step up to this house, you are prepared. You're prepared, and we're prepared to receive you.
It's all part of a design by Sid Carpenter, and it's breathtaking. The garden is lush and green on either side of a walkway of gray rectangular tiles. There's a circle of red brick with a crosshatch design in the middle. 4 ceramic vessels by local artists adorn the walkway with bursts of orange flowers and purple blossoms on either side. Vashti says it's all in preparation for entering the museum.
Welcome.
Thank you.
To come on into the first row, what us folks call the living room.
But what could prepare you for this place where Vashti raised her family and now raises consciousness about Black women? There's a quote here on the wall that said the museum is sanctuary not for colored girls only, but for anyone who is ready for a conscious revolution. And that's a quote from you. So what did you mean?
Well, so often, it could be the Colored Girls Museum. It could be anything. People will encounter an experience which is unfamiliar to them. And because they don't know it, they can't relate immediately. They assume it has nothing to do with them. And one of the things that I've said about being like an ordinary colored girl is that through no choice of my own or my tribe's, other ordinary Black women and girls, within the DNA of Black women is the world, like all of our DNA. And we are at the bottom of most things. And if you're at the bottom of most things, you get to see the world in a very different kind of way. You have to. And there is a kind of consciousness. And I'm not, we're not a monolith. We're as diverse as our skin tone and our hair textures. But there are common experiences that one has as a Black woman or a Black girl in this world, not just in this country. And there is a kind of consciousness that you have to move through the world with for your own protection, quite frankly. That gives you a different set of eyes that makes you conscious. And I would say to anybody coming into the Colored Girls Museum, you don't have to be a colored girl to connect.
But Black girls do connect to the Colored Girls Museum. Elizabeth Wellington of the Philadelphia Inquirer is one of them. She knew it the first time she walked inside.
When I walked in the first time, I'll never forget the sound of the wind chimes, and I thought that it was such a calm and peaceful and loving and inviting place for Black women. From the smells when you walked in, everything was so beautifully curated. And the art by the local women really spoke to emotion. It wasn't just seeing the art on the wall. It was about feeling the art and knowing that these artists were speaking to my feelings, my issues, things that I'm dealing with every day, not just as a journalist, but as a Black woman, because I'm always a Black woman first, right? So there's always that. And then over the years, we just became friends. I've covered the Colored Girls Museum exhibits because the exhibits speak to what we're going through. So some of the exhibits that she did about the adultification of Black girls, anybody, and you don't even know that has really impacted you until you grow up and you see how 12-year-old Black girls are treated, and how I remember how I was treated as opposed to 12-year-old white girls, and how we were expected to be adults, not just by the world, but by our families. And so she was pointing out things like that. She did a lot of exhibits about emergency room care, self-care, not in the way that, okay, I'm going to light a candle and have a bubble bath and eat chocolate, but self-help care and mental health care, and about how the trauma that we've dealt with through all our lives. And most of the trauma is kind of how people see us and then how we in turn see ourselves. So she spoke, and a lot of my writing is about that too. So she spoke to us in that way. And then that's kind of how our friendship became, because I was like, yes, like you feel like you're the only person that's seeing this or feeling this. And then you realize all these women who look and feel like you are in this together.
But even though the museum has built those kinds of connections, Vashti didn't set out to start a museum. I asked her how it all began.
Well, I did a show in the Philadelphia Fringe Festival called The Colored Girls Museum Open for Business. My background's in theater, and so it was a theater piece. And it was a theater piece about a house that wants to dress up as a Colored Girls Museum. And she does it by inviting friends to come into all the rooms in the house and install things that are significant to their experience of being colored girls or Black women and girls. So that was really the genesis. It was really a show. And quite honestly, the short story is it started generating so much interest that we weren't able to bring down the show. We were open week after week after week. But I realized that there's no other place still. There is no other place that centers the experiences of Black women and girls.
Vashti calls the museum an ordinary house with displays of ordinary colored girls. But in addition to countless pieces of art, the Colored Girls Museum has a collection of 8,000 books. There's nothing ordinary about any of this. Artist Lavette Ballard, whose work is displayed inside, knows it all too well.
I was contacted by Vashti and Michael, and once I went into the space, I was hooked.
What was it about the space that had you hooked?
Well, to be honest, when I first arrived, I went to the wrong house. I went to the house next door because in my mind, I knew it was a regular home, but I just thought for some reason, oh, it'll look like one of the old Victorians from the Gilded Age and, English garden and, railing, wrought iron fences and scroll work and a mashup of something from Martha's Vineyard and whatever in my head. And, but the house was unassuming on the outside. It had some notes of like the secret to its beauty, as you walked up the, walkway. But once you open those doors, I describe it to everyone. It's like you get the feeling of like Alice when she fell down the hole into Wonderland. It's magical almost.
One of the most striking displays is also one of the smallest. Vashti DuBois explains.
This piece right here is actually an installation by co-founder and curator for the Colored Girls Museum, Michael Clemens. This is called 4 Girls. And these are 4 vessels of the 4 girls who were killed in the 1963 church bombing. So one of these girls was 10 at the time that she was murdered in that church bombing, and 3 of these girls were 14 when they were murdered. In this site-specific installation, what you will see are 4 fans, which remind us that this murder took place in a church. The 3rd fan reminds us of the impact that the death of these girls had on the civil rights movement and its trajectory. And then 3 of the fans are carrying West African and Dinka symbols. Each symbol has a different value. And this has been with us since the museum opened in 2015. It's really the first piece that you have to come up against when you walk into this room. So when we talk about the Colored Girls Museum being a public ritual for the protection, praise, and grace of ordinary colored girls, we have to think about these 4 girls and what was taken from them. They didn't give anything when their caregivers sent them to church that morning. They expected that they were going to come home again, and they did not have the opportunity to do that. So when I say that people look at Black girls all the time but don't see Black girlhood, this is an example of what I mean. We can't give them back their lives, but we can talk about what was lost. We can remember what was lost, and we can offer to those girls still active in their girlhood now the protection, praise, and grace that these girls were denied.
Who's this?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. So this is Madison. Madison was 14 when this portrait was created, now 5 years ago. So the Colored Girls Museum has a traveling exhibition, which is called First Time Ever I Saw Your Face. And the idea behind this portrait is that when we opened in 2015, the one thing that I knew about the show was that when people come into the museum, which is an ordinary house in an ordinary neighborhood in Germantown, I wanted them to have to look up at Black girls, because you go into municipal buildings, hospitals, all these places, and you're usually looking up to white men, sometimes white women, and occasionally a Black man, but you're never looking up at a Black girl. And, Madison was 14. She's now a junior at Tisch School of Communications in New York. You'll see that in this portrait, she's holding a pen in her hand, because when this portrait was done by the artist, Madison just knew she wanted to be a writer. But by the time she was ready to go to college, she was actually deciding she was going to be a filmmaker. She actually filmed her first piece in one of the rooms upstairs. So every time I look at these portraits, it's really moving, because it's these girls have grown up in this museum. We've grown up with them. We know who they are. In most cases, we know who their caregivers are. And they're ordinary Black girls from Philadelphia.
But the museum can quickly move to unbridled joy, like it does when we walk upstairs to a second floor display.
Okay. It reminds me of Sesame Street. This reminds me of Sesame Street. This is a beautiful. What is it?
So this room is curated by Patricia Thomas, and she brought with her into this room Zenobi, Kayela, and Angelica, who gave us sort of the paintings on the wall that you see. This work, which is the Baltimore-based artist. And then this is Patricia Thomas herself, who's the community curator. This is her work, and this is her work. And when I came back to the museum, I had gone off to do work, so things were delivered here for her curation. This piece was here, and I was like, what is that? And you can tell, right? It's all knit, but it's so colorful. It's so playful. You just want to hug her. Mm-hmm. And one of the first things I thought when I looked at this piece is you really want to touch it. You're not supposed to touch the art, but you really want to hug her. Mm-hmm. Is what happens if you make your own monster? Right? There's so much that so many of us are afraid of. And there is a way that you can look at this and go, oh, this is frightening, but it's not frightening, is it?
No, it's not, but it's got a lot of eyes.
Got a lot of eyes. And when I saw her, I thought my granddaughter is just going to love her. Uh-huh. And when she came into the room and she saw all the arms, she was like, friend. And I thought, yeah, that's exactly what she's giving. And it's just stunning. And so much fun. Like, I feel like the room is just laughing. Like, it just has a lot of play in it.
And beyond the laughter, there are even more displays, like the washerwoman and her economic role in the Black community. And on the third floor, an artist goes even deeper.
The newest artist here is an artist named Ayanna V. Jackson. This piece is called Lucy. And it's on loan to the Colored Girls Museum from the William Ski Jiggets collection. She'll do sort of deep research on an aspect of history or a person. And then she will embody that story in that person. And so in this piece, Ayanna V. Jackson has really recreated this famous piece called The Negress, which you can look up. Many people know it when they see it. But then she has sort of installed the Negress as the character Lucy. Lucy is the youngest of the 3 Black girls who were experimented on by Dr. Sims, the quote unquote father of gynecology, without anesthesia. And she was 18. Lucy was the oldest. And so this portrait that you're looking at is Ayanna V. Jackson's sort of her interpretation of Lucy, that oldest girl who went through that trauma. What you're looking at beneath Lucy that's coming in for her is the pain relief that she and the other girls were denied. So what we're starting to build out here is her medicine cabinet, because we know how to relieve pain. We have that knowledge. And so Lucy didn't have that, but we can give that to Lucy now. And that becomes important because we know how we pass on generational trauma. But we also know that we can speak to it, we can heal it. And so this room is turning over to become the place where we care for the story of Lucy and how that impacts all of us. So Ayanna V. Jackson, Lucy.
You've told me that many of the people who were here with you and helped to start this and keep it going and were involved in it have passed away, have moved on, their ancestors. What do you think about when you think of them?
You know, like I said, this was the home that my husband and I purchased 25 years ago to raise our family in. We didn't know I had no idea we were going to do something like this. And so he's an ancestor. And I think about Albert. I think about Alicia. I think about Victoria. I think about Barbara. I think about Ian's father, who's one of the co-founders, whose father just passed. I think about, Michael and his brother Walter, who just passed. All of us connected, and then so many people that are just connected to us, and how our ancestors never leave us, and how the spirit and the power of who they are always held in a place like this, right? Because, we live our lives as though there's only one dimension, and there isn't. This is not the only level of consciousness that exists. And I think we often get trapped in that and can't imagine, right, how ancestors are continuing to support, to drive, to inspire, to encourage us, and to hold themselves and travel through spaces like this. Before Barbara Neely passed, she wrote a newsletter for us. And one of the things that she said was, when you come to the Colored Girls Museum, there are two sets of people traveling through that space. Those that you can see and feel and touch, and those that you can't, but they're passing each other on the stairs and you feel that. And I believe that to be true. So I don't believe our ancestors have left us. We hold them and as you can see, we hold them in the house.
The Colored Girls Museum is on the 4600 block of Newhall Street in Germantown. Learn more at thecoloredgirlsmuseum.com. For WURD, I'm Solomon Jones.
The Summer of Freedom Cultural Series, brought to you by Comcast and Keystone First, and is presented in partnership with the Preservation Alliance of Greater Philadelphia and the Society for the Preservation of Philadelphia African American Assets.